Good morning. This is your old pal Jimmy coming to you live and in person from my kitchen. Yesterday was a big day. We had a lot of fun. I kind of overdid it in PT. I was up on my shoulder last night, but I actually believe overall I'm making progress. I played bass guitar last night instead of fiddle, and that helps a little bit, but the bass is awful heavy. So anyway, we're awful glad to have it be Wednesday again, because most people go to church on Wednesday, and we still, there's a few of us that still get together for a meal and a little Bible study on Wednesday night, but Tuesday night is our main night now. And I did that to break the pattern and thinking that there's more nights a week you can go to church. I might do it Tuesday and Thursday. You never know. It just depends on how things go. We had a great service last night, and I'm grateful to all the people who came. Grateful to the help from the Ozark Full Gospel Church, and also the help that we're getting from Shiloh Baptist Church over in Marionville, and from, of all places, the Sycamore Tree, which is Recovery Church and Bible Study over in Marionville. These good men and women who are in recovery and who are working for the Lord will be putting our heads together at 4th of July weekend when they do which I think falls on Saturday the 29th for the town of Galena. We're going to be a presence there on the square and handing out some treats and gifts and little grab bags and stuff with the Galena First Baptist Church on it. Let people know that we're still in business and that God hadn't made soap out of us yet. We're all in danger of the glue factory, You get old and you don't serve a function anymore. I preached that last night. You can look that up on the live stream. If you quit doing your job, the Lord just might take away your candlestick and you don't have any light left. That happens. But it's not going to happen this morning because we are alive and we are praising God today. One of the reasons I'm praising God, and you should be too, is that we're near the end of Jeremiah. We're starting the last chapter today. This is a narrative chapter. I don't think we'll get through it, but it's material we've covered before. Again, from about, I would say chapter 50 toward the end, verse pages are stuck together. From about verse 59 in the last chapter, chapter 51, all the way down to the end of chapter 51 and all of chapter 52, I believe fall under the heading of the scribe. Baruch wrote it up. It's a way to end Jeremiah. It's material that we know from 2 Kings and from 2 Chronicles. It's also material we know from the book of Jeremiah. It is a recap and expansion on what Jeremiah wrote in chapter 39, which we went through 958 years ago. I mean, about 4 months ago. We've been on Jeremiah since Labor Day of 1919. How old am I? We've been on Jeremiah since Labor Day, Monday Labor Day of last year, 2023. And here we are coming up on the 4th of July of 2024. We've been in this book a long time. It is a long book. It's a hard book. And so we've had lots of stuff to do. But this is a recap of previously covered material. And I believe that it is Baruch's summation of the scroll of Jeremiah. Some of it he copied directly out of 2 Kings. A couple of phrases that he copied directly out of the scroll that he wrote for Jeremiah in chapter 39. Does this mean that this is not a part of the book of Jeremiah? No, it doesn't mean that at all, because a good portion of the book of Jeremiah, especially after good King Josiah died, from about the middle of the reign of Jehoiakim on, Baruch was writing the words of Jeremiah. As a matter of fact, if you remember in chapter 45, Baruch was tired of doing what he was doing, and God said, shut up and go back to work. Remember? He said, I'm not going to give you another job. You're Jeremiah's scribe. That's your job, and you're going to do your job. But I will save your life, and I'll keep you safe just so you can do Jeremiah's work. And write it down. So we have to remember, we get the big head in ministry. You know what? For every Jeremiah in the world, he needs probably 100 or more Baruchs, because there's all kinds of work that need to get done so that the great prophet can do his work, right? Well, the same principle is true in ministry. I have, as I've told you before, I've been with many great men. Good morning, Gayla. I've traveled with great men. I've spoken to the rich and the great and the powerful, and I understand that I'm not a great man. I've been with great men, and I know the difference. See, but I don't mind carrying the suitcase of a great man. I don't mind getting coffee for the great man. I don't mind being their scribe or their secretary or their assistant, because I'm serving the greatness of somebody that's serving God. And I've always looked at it like that. And now in my old age, there's people that want to help me, and I'm so grateful for that. But God told Baruch, he said, you just shut up and get back to work. You're Jeremiah's scribe, and you're not going anywhere. You find that back in chapter 45. So this is actually Baruch's, and you can tell by the writing, it's Baruch's summation of this book of the prophet Jeremiah, also including the last part of chapter 51 that we went through, because when you get to the end of chapter 1, it says, thus far are the words of Jeremiah. That's a Hebrewism for saying this is the end of what Jeremiah had to say. And Baruch is just putting a coda to the end of it. Now, verse 52, he's going to recap the fall of Jerusalem and the last years of the reign of Zedekiah. Verse 1 of chapter 52. Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Hamutal, the daughter of Jeremiah of Libnah. Now, we know that Zedekiah is not the grandson of the Jeremiah who wrote this book, of the prophet Jeremiah. Because A, Jeremiah was not of the seed royal, he was a priest. The only way he could be a priest was if he's a tribe of Levi. So he has nothing to do with the tribe of Judah or with the royal line, the royal seed. Also, he was from Anathoth, not Libnah. And the Jeremiah who was the grandfather of King Zedekiah was Jeremiah of Libnah. And our Jeremiah, the prophet, was from Anathoth. And he was not of the tribe of Judah, he was a Levite. Remember what Jacob said in the prophecy upon his bed when he was blessing all the 12 sons, plus Ephraim and Manasseh. He said that the scepter shall not depart from Judah till Shiloh come, which means that's another name for the peace that Jesus brings. And if you have a King James Bible, a properly rendered King James Bible, you will have Shiloh in capital letters, because it stands for the Lord. Because it's not just peace, it's the peace that only Christ can bring. And Christ, of course, is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Now, verse 2, and he who? Zedekiah, good old King Zedekiah. We talked about him. We talked about how he acted kindly to Jeremiah on an occasion or two, but he cared more about his own hide than he cared about anything else. And he did that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. Remember, his brother Jehoiakim, his older brother, became king when the Egyptian Pharaoh Necho, whose army had actually killed their father Josiah, good King Josiah, in battle. And the downfall began with an increasing rapidity. The English language is wonderful, isn't it? There's so many descriptive words, and so it set Jehoiakim upon the throne and made him a puppet of the empire of Egypt. In 604 or 605, depending on how you count the battle and the aftermath, BC, Nebuchadnezzar defeated the Egyptian empire at the Battle of Carchemish. Then, around that time, or a little after, Jehoiakim died. We're not clear on how he died. The tradition is that he was either murdered by a jealous husband, or he was murdered by some of his own court. A theory that I find kind of intriguing is that he was murdered by assassins from King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon because he was proving to be an ineffective vassal. Because see, when Babylon defeated Egypt, they took over this political sway over Judah. So Jehoiakim died. He put his son Jehoiachin on the throne. Nebuchadnezzar did, as a puppet king. Now, he's called, different times in the Bible, he's called Coniah, Jeconiah, and Jehoiachin. It's the same guy. It's Jehoiakim's son. Jehoiachin is actually an Egyptian rendering of his name. They call it, but his name was Coniah or Jeconiah. In the New Testament, you'll see him referred to as Jeconiah when he's listed in the lineage, in the genealogy down to Jesus. He served for about 3.5, 4 years. And Nebuchadnezzar didn't like him either as a puppet king, so he took him to Babylon and put him in jail. And then King Nebuchadnezzar set King Zedekiah, Jehoiakim's brother, and Jehoiachin, or Coniah's uncle, set him on the throne, and he became the puppet king. And that's where we're at now. And Zedekiah did that which was evil in the eyes of the Lord, according to all that Jehoiakim had done. For through the anger of the Lord it came to pass in Jerusalem and Judah, until he had cast them out of his presence, till God had cast the people out by death and captivity, that Zedekiah rebelled against the king of Babylon. That's not the main reason Zedekiah took Judah and destroyed Jerusalem, but it was because Nebuchadnezzar wanted to take Judah. He needed it for a base against Egypt on the continent of Africa. That was his plan. And it came to pass, verse 4, In the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his army, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it, and built forts against it round about. And so the city was besieged unto the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And in the 4th month, in the 9th day of the month, the famine was sore in the city, so that there was no bread for the people of the land. Then the city was broken up, and all the men of war fled and went forth out of the city by night, by the way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the king's garden. Now, does this sound familiar to you? It's because you've read it twice. I referred to it in 2 Kings chapter 25, and you also read pieces of this in Jeremiah chapter 39. This is a recap. This is like the summary at the end of the book of the prophet Jeremiah, which I have no doubt that Baruch wrote, because he was Jeremiah's scribe. Now the Chaldeans were by the city round about, and they went by the way of the plain. But the army of the Chaldeans pursued after the king, and overtook Zedekiah in the plains of Jericho, and all his army was scattered from him. Good morning, Gala, my old friend. And his army was scattered from him. Then they took up the king, carried him unto the king of Babylon to Riblah in the land of Hamath, where he gave judgment upon him. And the king of Babylon slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes. He slew also all the princes of Judah in Riblah. Then he put out the eyes of Zedekiah. The king of Babylon bound him in chains, and carried him to Babylon, and put him in prison till the day of his death. Last thing you see, your wives and your concubines given to the soldiers to rape, and all of your sons, all of your prodigy, and your daughters probably given to the generals to rape, and then all of your sons, all of your progeny, all of your future, killed right before your eyes, and then they put out your eyes. So that's the last thing you see, is your women turned over to barbarians, and your sons murdered in front of your face. And you go to prison in chains and you die. It didn't have to end like that for Zedekiah. Remember, Jeremiah told him, said, if you walk out and give yourself up and give this city up to Nebuchadnezzar, God will preserve your life. You'll go captive into Babylon, but you can live, and your wives can live, and your daughters and your sons can live. But Zedekiah was too proud to obey the Lord. Are you? Are you too proud to obey the Lord? I've been too proud to obey the Lord before, and it's got me in all kinds of trouble. 12. Now in the 5th month, in the 10th day of the month, which was the 19th year of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, which served the king of Babylon, into Jerusalem, and burned the house of the Lord. They destroyed the temple that Solomon built, and the king's house, all the houses of Jerusalem, all the houses of the great men burned he with fire. And all the army of the Chaldeans that were with the captain of the guard brake down all the walls of Jerusalem round about. And then Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive certain of the poor of the people, and the residue of the people that remained in the city, and those that fell away, that fell to the king of Babylon, and the rest of the multitude. But Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, left certain of the poor of the land for vine dressers and for husbandmen. Also the pillars of the brass that were in the house of the Lord, and the bases, and the brazen sea that was in the house of the Lord, the Chaldeans brake, and carried off all the brass of them to Babylon. The cauldrons also, and the shovels, and the snuffers, and the bowls, and the spoons, and all the vessels of brass, wherewith they ministered, took he away. That's all the instruments of the temple that Solomon made. Took them away to Babylon. And the basins and the fire pans and the bowls, all of the tools of the altar. The cauldrons, the candlesticks, the spoons, the cups, that which was gold and gold, that which was silver and silver, took the captain of the guard away. They took all the money. They took all the precious metal, precious jewels. The 2 pillars, 1 sea, and 12 brazen bulls that were under the bases which King Solomon had made in the house of the Lord. The brass of those vessels was without weight. Remember, brass was the third most precious metal. There were 3 things that were used for coin, 3 metals that were used for coin: gold, silver, and brass. Brass was in third place, but it was still worth a lot of money. And concerning the pillars, the height of one pillar was 18 cubits. That's like, 18 feet plus 9 feet. That's like 27 feet tall. Thereabouts. And a fillet of 12 cubits did compass it. And the thickness thereof was 4 fingers, and it was hollow. And the chapiter of brass was upon it, and the height of one chapiter was 5 cubits, and a network of pomegranates around the chapiters, round about, all of brass. The second pillar also, and the pomegranates were like unto these. And you can read about all of these things that Solomon put in the temple in 1 Kings, a detailed description of all the stuff. And there were 96 pomegranates on the side. These were made of gold. And all the pomegranates upon the network were 100 round about. And the captain of the guard took Seraiah, the chief priest, and Zephaniah, the second priest. Remember, Seraiah was the high priest, the quiet prince, and Zephaniah, the second priest, and the 3 keepers of the doors. He took also out of the city a eunuch who had charge of the men of war, and 7 men of them that were near the king's person, which were found in the city, and the principal scribe of the host who mustered the people of the land. Not Baruch, not that scribe, and 80 men of the people of the land that were found in the midst of the city. So Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, took them and brought them to the king of Babylon to Riblah. And the king of Babylon smote them and put them to death in Riblah, in the land of Hamath. Thus Judah was carried away captive out of his own land. It is my opinion, as I touched on yesterday, that this Seraiah, the quiet prince, he was the son of Neriah, which meant he was a Levite. Baruch was the son of Neriah. He was a Levite, a scribe, and he became Jeremiah's scribe. God attached him to Jeremiah. God promised he'd save his life. Just to refresh your memory, Baruch wanted a different job because the king, Jehoiakim, was trying to kill him and also to kill Jeremiah. And Baruch was pretty nervous about it, so he was praying that God would give him another job. one that wasn't quite so dangerous. Can you blame him? Chapter 45 of Jeremiah, just a flashback here about Baruch getting his job for life and also obtaining his safety in the process. Baruch, the son of Neriah. Chapter 45, it's a short chapter. I'm reading all of it, only 5 verses. The word that Jeremiah the prophet spake unto Baruch, the son of Neriah, when he had written these words in a book at the mouth of Jeremiah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, saying, Thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, unto thee, Baruch, thou didst say, Woe is me now, for the Lord hath added grief to my sorrow. I fainted in my sighing, and I find no rest. My job is too hard. Thou shalt say unto him, The Lord saith thus, Behold, that which I have built I will break down, and that which I have planted I will pluck up, even this whole land. And seekest thou great things for thyself? Seek them not, for behold, I will bring evil on all flesh, saith the Lord. But thy life will I give thee for a prey in all the places where thou goest. Another son of Neriah, Seraiah, the high priest, he was captured and taken to Babylon. Let's see. 14 years after Jeremiah wrote chapter 51, the brother of Baruch, the other son of Neriah, who was the high priest, a quiet prince, he got carried away, and the brother who worked for Jeremiah, Baruch, he got kidnapped and taken down into Egypt by the rebellious tribe of Judah. But he didn't go to Babylon and die. He went south with Jeremiah, and we assume they all died down there at some point. Verse 28, This is the people whom Nebuchadnezzar carried away captive in the 7th year, 3,000 Jews and 23. In the 18th year, he carried away captive from Jerusalem 832 persons. And in the 23rd year of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carried away captive 745 persons, and the persons were 4,600. What he did was he took all the rich people and all the royalty, all the ruling class. Now, these are just the ones that are named. He took thousands of captives in chains to be slaves. But these are like the named people, the higher-ups, the people who ran the country. It would be like saying, it would be like us getting invaded and they carried away the congressmen and the Supreme Court and the judges and some of the cabinet and the president. They carried them all away captive. Well, they mentioned them, but they wouldn't mention the thousands that they took away in a chain gang to be slaves. But they flourished in Babylon. As a matter of fact, as I've explained before, that at the time of Jesus, the largest concentration of Jews on the face of the earth was in Babylon, and it remained that way for many, many years. Verse 31, we're going to get through Jeremiah today because it was a narrative chapter. We've covered this material before. And it came to pass in the 37th year of the captivity of Jehoiachin. Remember him? Coniah, Jeconiah, Jehoiachin, all the same guy. The son of Jehoiakim, whom Nebuchadnezzar put on the throne of Judah in Jerusalem after Jehoiakim died. Then Nebuchadnezzar got to where he didn't like the way he was doing, so he took him captive, took him to Babylon, they put his uncle Zedekiah on the throne, and Zedekiah reigned for 11 years, and then Nebuchadnezzar finally had enough and destroyed them. Hello, Kevin. I'm glad things are good with you. It's good to see you, man. Good to see you on here. It came to pass in the 37th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim. There's 37 years after they carried him to Babylon, the king of Judah, in the 12th month, in the 5th and 20th day of the month, that Evil Merodach, king of Babylon, in the first year of his reign, lifted up his head. Now, Evil Merodach in Chaldean language is Amil Marduk. The Hebrew version is Evil Merodach. His name wasn't evil because he was wicked. He probably was wicked, but that's not what evil means in Hebrew. It's a Hebrewization of a Chaldean word. And so that was, his name was Evil Merodach. He was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. He was actually the king because he was the successor to Nebuchadnezzar after Nebuchadnezzar died. He was not the oldest son, but because of palace intrigue and all this kind of stuff, he ascended the throne. And he was hated from the beginning. He didn't like being king, and his court didn't like him being king, and they didn't like his main wife. And so this Evil Merodach, or Amel Marduk in the Chaldean tongue, he spent a lot of time like traveling in the western part of the Babylon conquered territories, and he kind of set up a court in what today is modern day northern Syria, and he liked being closer to the Mediterranean, so he could just kind of skip over there and go to the beach when he wanted to. I don't know all the details, and nobody does. Cheryl, it's good to see you. But this evil Merodach, when he was reigning as king, and this is how Belshazzar comes on the scene. Belshazzar was one of the sons of evil Marduk, evil Merodach, and Belshazzar, he was reigning as king, as a regent, or as in the stead of his father, who was the actual king. That's why when he asked for Jeremiah to read the writing on the wall in Daniel chapter 5, that's why he says he'd give Daniel a third of the kingdom, make him third ruler in the kingdom. Well, he couldn't make him second ruler because his father was first ruler, Evil Merodach, or Amil Marduk, or Nabonidus II. He had several names. It's the same guy, depending on who's writing the history. And so Belshazzar was reigning in his place, but this Evil Merodach was the king for a while. He finally just left Babylon because he didn't like being king, and nobody liked him, so he just kind of traveled a lot, hid out. He was probably hiding from the people who were trying to kill him. But we know he skipped around all over the near Middle East, which would be west and far west from Babylon itself, from the city. It said that in the 5th and 20th day of the month that Evil Merodach, the king of Babylon, in the first year of his reign, lifted up the head of Jehoiachin, king of Judah, and brought him forth out of the prison, and spake kindly unto him. Oh, he said, my daddy was a real creep for locking you up in here. I've enjoyed our conversations. I don't know what the purpose was behind this or what Evil Merodach's intentions were. This is just what happened. Maybe he thought Jehoiachin had a fortune buried somewhere, some jewels or something that he could cough up. We don't know. And he spake kindly to him and set his throne above the throne of the kings that were with him in Babylon. Remember, like many conquerors, King Nebuchadnezzar had advisors from the countries he conquered. As a matter of fact, one of the leaders of the campaign against Jerusalem was a great Assyrian general named Ragmag. I've read a lot of magazines that were a little more than rags, but his name was Ragbag in the Assyrian tongue. It was very similar to Hebrew and Chaldean from that part of the world. Um, but he put him from prison. He put Jehoiachin among his counselors. And he said he changed his prison garments, Jehoiachin's prison garments, and Jehoiachin did continually eat bread before him all the days of his life. And for his diet there was given a continual diet given to him of the king of Babylon, every day a portion until the day of his death, all the days of his life. This is another reason why I believe, even though it's not signed, the main reason I believe Baruch wrote this last chapter and the last few verses of chapter 51 is that he was Jeremiah's scribe. How did he know about Jehoiachin getting out of jail? Well, because Babylon eventually conquered Egypt. And there was commerce and trade and mail. And so Baruch, after the death of Jeremiah, or when Jeremiah was very old before he died, he was exchanging mail with the captives in Babylon, so he heard the story that way. Now, several instances in before the destruction of Jerusalem and Nebuchadnezzar takes over, that there was regular mail imposed between the people that were taken in the first captivity, like Ezekiel and Daniel, taken into Babylon. That there was Jeremiah wrote them letters. They wrote letters to Jeremiah. They wrote letters to the high priest in Jerusalem. The high priest wrote them back. When Zedekiah was still a faithful satellite or servant to Nebuchadnezzar on the throne of Judah, he would have diplomatic missions that would go to Babylon, and Jeremiah would give letters, and Baruch would give letters to people in those caravans to take to the captives in Babylon. You remember the captivity of Judah didn't happen all at once. It happened in 3 different stages. There were 3 deportations, 3 main deportations before the destruction, 2 before the destruction and 1 after the destruction of Jerusalem. And that's how Baruch knew about this, which brings us to the end of the book of the prophet Jeremiah. Now, I'm going to continue with Lamentations tomorrow, but I probably won't start tomorrow. We're going to have one day where we're going to have an addendum, a little Jimmy commentary on the entire book of Jeremiah as it deals with the destruction, particularly the future destruction of Babylon. And I'm going to read you some passages in the next lesson. When we consider the judgment of Babylon the Great, the mystery of Babylon, that great whore, who made all the kings of the world drunk with the wine of her fornications. We read about it in Revelation 17. They have to all be taken together. So what I'm going to do before Lamentations, if the Lord leads me to do this, before we get away from the judgment of Babylon, before we get into the Lamentations over Jerusalem, I want to talk a little more about Babylon. And so we'll do that on our next program. I love all y'all. God bless you.